Despite Modern Survivor's ideology of trying to give everyone's edit a more holistic meaning, resulting in us having less villains compared to Survivor 40 and before, there still have been some individuals. Since villainous figures are so few and far between nowadays, I figured we should celebrate them and their legacy in this video. If I missed any or if you disagree with my list, then hey, let me know down in the comments below, and 200 likes for part 2. The first individual on this list is someone that is not a surprise whatsoever, and that's Shantel Smith. I think she set the trend of what it means to be a villain in Modern Survivor, as despite having an absolutely compassionate side, she also had a lot of cutthroat moves. Uo was the first quote-unquote train wreck of a tribe. Outside of the Ase tribe losing in episode 2, they had to attend tribal council at every round of the game. Within this section of the game, Shantel established herself as both a very strong strategic and social player. She built bonds with Sarah, Brad and JD, then cut them when they least expected it. This is particularly notable with JD. The two had built a very strong bond, but Shan expertly played on his paranoia by taking his extra vote from him in order to save him at the Brad Tribal Council. Then at the following Tribal Council, she pulled the same move, except she voted out JD, giving her sole possession of the advantage. For a season that I knock, in particularly being very strategic plus advantage orientated, with very little downtime, Shan's character was part of the exception. Her Shanthem theme was a fun subplot, where she would hum a devious song every time she was plotting something.
Like literally, I have a soundtrack that I hum.
At the merge, despite being down in numbers with Karud as her only ally, Shan managed to establish herself within the majority, but even then had arguments highlighted, such as her feuds with Deshawn. However, this didn't stop Shan's dominance, as she was responsible for the eliminations of Sydney, Tiffany and Nasir. At this point, people felt like they had to back up the quote-unquote obvious winner in Shan. Then she got voted out, with an idol in her pocket. The final 8 of Survivor 41 features the downfall of Shan, with the culmination of individual storylines. Deshawn and Danny finally flip on her, she gets caught out for humming her villain tune by Heather, and Shan's vote off is displayed as Erica's big move, propelling her Lion storyline. After Shan's elimination, the season really doesn't feel the same. I don't know, it's like game changers once the big final threat goes, causing individuals with more subdued edits to battle it out. Shan was the chaos that was sorely lacking in 41 and set the bar for the new era villain. But that bar may have been surpassed by Omar Zaheer. Omar had not nearly as rough a pre-merge as Shan, although his tribe lost Jackson almost immediately, followed by Mariah's elimination. This allowed Omar to set up stronger pillars of influence on his original Taku tribe, which was key. One of these notable relationships was with Jonathan Young. We've seen this duo dichotomy in Survivor before, as Jonathan establishes himself as the brawn and Omar was, well, everything else. This culminated at the merge where, after the hourglass, everyone's favourite twist, Jonathan was left extremely vulnerable. In a situation that still to this day is questioned by the community about what actually happened, Lydia in self-preservation tries to throw out Jonathan, a member of the Core 8 majority, as an option. Omar then used this information to turn the game on Lydia as someone who was going against the majority alliance, even using this fact to get her closest ally High on side. Even in Express, Lydia reaffirms this was manipulation by Omar, who twisted her words to get her out. From this point on, Omar established himself as a power player, getting out Chanel, who wronged him in the ship wheel dilemma, as well as Roxroy, who tried to create an all-male alliance Omar was opposed to. This carries us into the final 8, where Omar pulls off one of the greatest manipulation tactics of Modern Survivor by utilising the underrated aspect of Survivor in lying about conversations. This made-up conversation was between he and High, where he used Mike's paranoia against him to convince him one of his closest allies was calling him his puppy dog, and it worked like a charm.
High has never told me that Mike was a puppet, but hearing those words just supercharged Mike. And I'm like, Mike, I would never treat you that way.
Hai gets eliminated, and then Omar follows that up by outplaying Drea through informing Mike about Drea's advantage, then holding on to his idol, and thus this allowed them to easily take her out. After that though, Omar was too big of a threat. Drea called him out in her last words, and everyone knew he had too much of a resume. Even contestants like Jonathan have went on to state they didn't want to go to the end with him if he survived the final 6, which by the way he didn't due to Marianne's 3-2-2 plan, taking him out in an explosive round of gameplay, just like a true villain deserves. This video is sponsored by Survivor Castaway Island, a game that lets you play Survivor from the comfort of your own home, available on Xbox One, Xbox Series X, PS4, PS5, Nintendo Switch, Steam and the Epic Games Store. Do you have what it takes to be the sole survivor, or will you be snuffed before the finishing line? Purchase the game for yourself, and see if you have what it takes to earn the crown. Survivor 43's biggest villain in my opinion was Jesse. Now, I was torn as I was very much debating Cody due to him tricking his tribe into giving him the beware advantage beads, plus him being a salesperson that hated salespeople. Jesse was a very sympathetic figure, but I feel he hit higher highs than Cody in the villain realm. For example, Jesse's experience on Vesey was rather wild, as he was in the swing position alongside Dwight, but actually went against his partner's preferences just to get out Justine, who had tested him. From that point on, Jesse's relationship with Dwight hit the rocks, and he was considering tearing up the marriage papers. In spite of a rough start, Vesey eventually went on a small winning streak, and the four made the merge, where Jesse took on another form of dominance. An example of this was seen during the final 12. James found another fan favourite advantage in the knowledge is power, allowing him to take someone's idol or advantage with simply one question. As a result, this scared the entire cast, causing advantages to be swapped. Janine gave her idol to Dwight, who secretly gave it to his island husband. In spite of this generosity, Jesse literally votes Dwight out of the game and keeps the idol for himself, while making Janine believe Dwight got voted out with her idol. As a cherry on top, Cody had been lending his idol to Jesse, meaning he had 2 idols, which was an insane power play. Around this time, the Ride or Die Alliance started to find its roots, eliminating Janine, Noelle and Sammy, as well as the Alliance having a bigger significance at the James boot than apparently shown on TV. At the final 6, Jesse still had 2 idols and proceeded to pull off perhaps the biggest move in modern Survivor history.
If I gotta switch it up and be more brutal, I will.
He recognised Cody as a massive jury threat to him personally, so instead of tricking Carla and voting her out with an idol, he instead played his idol on the intended target Owen. This freaks Carla out, making her burn her idol, as instead Cody gets blindsided. It's one of the most multi-layer plans in Survivor history, and the fact Jesse was able to manage so many variables is insanity, but also villainous because damn, it was cutthroat. While Jesse didn't win the game, he really showed how you can make a name for yourself in the modern format. Plus, apart from the one vote Jesse negated at the final 5 with Janine's idol, he never received an actual vote in 43, so shout out to you, Mr. Mafasio. From the Mafia to, not the Mafia, I had to shout out Danny. Coming into Survivor 44, I wasn't entirely sure what to expect from Danny, but I was certainly blown away with what we did get. In a good way, of course. Danny started out the game aggressively by finding the beware advantage, locking the birdcage and obtaining the idol. Now, this was the Survivor 44 version of the twist, and when you unlock the birdcage, you can get a fake idol emblem. Now, don't get me wrong, there were a lot of fake idols planted this season, but there's something about Danny's that comes off as a lot more villainous. After pulling a Survivor South Africa Werner 2.0, he hides the clue, waits for Matt to find it, and then calls him out in front of the tribe. This meant the idol Matt found, which he did believe was real by the way, was exposed to everyone just for the sake of Danny shielding himself. At the merge, Danny played a very fluid game by aligning with Ratu, particularly Brandon, and then proceeded to idol Franny just to take Brandon out. After a few rounds, Danny then flipped back on his own tribe to take out Franny, before biting the bullet and getting flipped on himself. However, at least in his elimination round, Danny identified that Tika 3 were a threat, but ultimately didn't have the social capital to pull through. Through his consistent flipping and aggressive gameplay, the Survivor community as well as the hosts of the On Fire podcast have dubbed Danny as Baby Tony, and it takes some killer instinct to fill those shoes. But on the topic of the On Fire podcast, the recent guest in Dee is the final entry on this list. Now, Survivor 45 is probably the first season in a new era where production established its basis of having no more villains. The edits were noticeably far more complex and multi-dimensional, but if I had to go for a villain, especially a winner, it would be Dee. While her pre-swap was pretty standard, it was the swap that really started to set her up. At this tribe swap, Dee's original group has the numbers with the 4 Rebas plus Sean, a representative of the Lulu losers. However, instead of voting out Sean, Dee was one of the pioneers to eliminate Sifu instead, which was met with some criticism on the show. Even when Sean voices his want to quit the game, she still sticks her vote onto Sifu, despite both Jay, Maya and Julie eliminating the latter. To be honest, this is where Dee's excellence shines, as she successfully convinces Sifu she wasn't the person that voted him, and instead manages to turn him on Jay Maya, ensuring she's safe at the 13-person merge alongside her ally in Julie. This self-professed little firecracker then hit the merge with a bang by situating herself in one of the most powerful alliances in modern Survivor. The Reba 4 are well known for their immense stranglehold on the game, with pretty much everyone under their thumb. While this distinction for Dee was no different to the likes of Austin, Drew or Julie, I did find Dee's snarky comments very Tyson Apostle-esque, as she flamed contestants from her confessional.
So yeah, okay Kendra, get some rotisserie chicken, but you're gonna be eating more of that soon when you're out of this game. We did not get some rotisserie chicken, but we got a ton of rice that Jake didn't eat because we ate more than he thinks we ate.
Throughout the game, Austin and Dee became a close pair and were compared to Boston Rob plus Amber. However, I actually think Dee was more Boston Rob-esque due to being a Mephisto type of player. She didn't tell Austin about Julie's idol, causing him to lose his ally in Emily. Then at the final 6, she didn't tell him his closest ally in Drew is being voted out. It's really that deception that allowed Dee to undercut Austin so effectively at the final tribal council, proving she had more control within the endgame portion of the game over him. A lot of people, when they use the term villain, use it negatively when referring to reality TV contestants. But on a show like Survivor, I use it more so as a term of endearment, and I have a lot of respect for individuals nowadays that are willing to embrace a more evil side, in spite of the backlash they'll undoubtedly receive on social media. And without trying to get too philosophical for a simple YouTube video, I've already seen some awful things on social media just for the Survivor 46 contestants that get a shred of negativity in their edit. So if you want to do a good deed for today, message some of them on their social media page, someone you think deserves it, and tell them how awesome they are. But unfortunately that is the end of the video. However, if you want to check out more Survivor content, you can see this video where I discuss which is better, Australian Survivor or Survivor US. Nevertheless, have a good day. Oh, peace!